So for our second lecture, what we've got here is a very big set of texts not in terms of size, but in terms of importance. And we'll begin with Aristotle. Oh, this kind of minor nobody of the ancient world. We don't have time, obviously, to talk about all of Aristotle's major works. I mean, goodness, there are whole classes or even multiple classes that are taught on Aristotle's major works. Everything from science to logic to mathematics to rhetoric and so on. But we are going to sort of do a little bit of a tip of the hat to a couple of works that precede the one that is of greatest importance to us, and that is the rhetoric. First, we'll begin with a couple that deal with logic and with reasoning and all of those kinds of things, and that is the analytics. Now, he wrote a prior analytics and a posterior analytics, and he wrote a work called the Topics or Topica or Topoi. Essentially, the selection that you have in the Matson text demonstrate that Aristotle is attempting to delineate forms of reasoning, and we don't have to go in through. I mean, the prior and posterior analytics and the Topoi or Topica are just very, very extensive. They're huge, and you can devote entire courses, as I said, on it. So we're just looking at a couple of little snippets so that you can get some of the pre-rhetoric, work that Aristotle did in the area of logic and reasoning, and to kind of distill it, and you can read through it yourself. This is just designed, again, like I said, these lectures are designed merely to give you some highlights and some things to look for as you're reading. One of the things that you want to bear in mind is that Aristotle is attempting through these to delineate forms of reasoning, not so much how to go about reasoning, but trying to categorize types of reasoning. There's a big distinction there, because one of the things we're always trying to do with undergraduate students or high school students or whatnot is to develop within them critical thinking skills, right? How to reason. That's not what Aristotle's trying to do here. Aristotle is basically working from the premise that everybody already knows how to reason, or at least his students do. And what he's really interested in doing is to try to get to the root of what are the types of reasoning, which is kind of another way of saying what are the types of human cognition. Now that's a fairly deep question, and here we're crossing over from the field of logic and mathematics into this field that we know of today as psychology. Essentially, what he comes up with is this: a system that, in a nutshell, to simplify, is that in reality, in the universe, there are two types of truths, basically. Scientific truths, and he deals with this in the analytics, and those are deductive, syllogistic truths that have certainty, and what he calls apodeixis, okay, apodeixis, which is certain truth, scientific truth, indisputable truth to anybody who has a rational mind. Okay, mathematics falls within this, correct? Some things that we would probably not say are such open and shut things. Physics, where we're still trying to find new things, and what we thought were laws maybe aren't quite the laws we thought they were. Aristotle doesn't see it that way. Aristotle has a little bit more simplistic view of the universe, that there's certain scientific truths that are indisputable. Laws of nature, gravity. I mean, he didn't know about the second law of thermodynamics, but he would have said that was a scientific truth, and so on and so forth. So these are one type of proof, or I'm sorry, truth. The other type of truths are probable truths, and here he deals with these in the Topica and the text that we're going to focus a lot of attention on, the rhetoric. Okay, these are likely truths, not absolute certain truths, not scientific, likely truths, and they're established through the use of certain types of arguments like enthymemes, examples, and other modes of proof. Enthymemes are sort of probable truth versions of syllogisms. So true syllogisms that are apodeixis syllogisms deal with science. There are enthymemes, they're like syllogisms that deal with probable truths. Examples, maxims, other types of proof. These are all lumped under pisteus, okay, which is kind of the general word for proof, but in the sense of probable truth, not scientific truth. Now, probable truths are, this is a very important concept, topical. And what he means by that is, and by the way, the word topical, topographical. It means place, basically. So it gives you an insight into the Greek mind that the Greeks saw arguments as being located someplace in the mind, right? They all have their own little spot there in your brain someplace. These are over on the left-hand side, next to all of the childhood traumas. That argument over there is over on the right-hand side, near all of your memories about this, that, or the other, right? I mean, they literally are sort of giving you a notion that arguments are physically located someplace, or at least that's the metaphor. It's I don't know how literal they are in that, but they can be committed to memory and should be. They can be accessed, these probable truth arguments can be accessed for use on any given occasion, and they can be crafted to an audience. So when we're dealing with pistius, probable truths, in the realm of rhetoric, argumentation, versus apodixis, which is scientific and whatnot. People don't argue about that, right? They don't argue about math, 2 plus 2. They don't argue about that. That's certain. That's not probable. When we're dealing with probable truths, there are forms of proof for probable truth arguments, pistias, that's what those are called, and these are able to be memorized, able to be accessed, and able to be crafted for a particular audience. And there we get down to, okay, we're not dealing with this, we are dealing with it. Notice what Aristotle's doing here. He's kind of working through the objections that Plato, Socrates had to the question of rhetoric. Once he's done this, you see, he's able to come down and say, look, this is what rhetoric deals with. Stop trying to mix apples and oranges. I didn't ever say that it was scientifically true. Okay? So there are different types of truths. Once you categorize, and that's what Aristotle's really good at, once you categorize this and delineate this and distinguish and define these different things, it's much easier to see what rhetoric is at that stage.